Emotions. What are you doing? Oh, don't you know? Don't you know you'll be my ruin? You got me crying again. When will you let this heartache and emotions? You get me upset.
Everything I'm writing right now feels it seems to be very morbid and dark. And the work is flowing out of me, but I think I'm feeling very nervous about putting it out or exposing it because of the darkness that it contains. And I think that the relationship I'm having to my work right now, I almost feel like Dorian Gray. Like the work is the portrait in the attic of my soul, which is dark and twisted. But the work isn't your entire being. You know what I mean? It is just a portion of it. And so I wonder how much the block or the shame surrounding it is that I'll be hated because of the work. And I don't know if that's necessarily different from not making something because the voice in your head, you know, of your friend, of your high school friend, that, you know, is the voice of shame different from the high school friend in your head that's, you know, like, what are you, gay? You know what I mean? I think that's almost the same voice. It's that same voice that was acquired and that isn't actually part of you. I watched this great podcast, or listened to this great podcast recently called Back from the Borderline. I'm sure this says a lot about me. And the host, I think her name's Molly, was talking about shame and that these shameful and ironic voices that are in our head are acquired and that they're not part of us. And so therefore, we have to change our relationship to them. I mean, people talk about the feeling cringeworthy, and that can be a barrier to work. And I think that is connected to any fear of being judged. And so I'm writing this work, and I think that what's attracting me to the darkness right now, in especially like writing and film, is that in my last short film, I felt that I didn't go deep enough. And so in looking for that depth, for some reason, like there is depth in love and in, I guess, happier themes. But I think what I'm interested in right now is the complexities of people, and that's reflected in characters. I also think, and one thing I'm trying to remember, is because I've been having a lot of conversations with other, I guess, sort of like older mentor kind of figures. And, you know, not that much older, but I've been talking to a lot of people about, like, you know, we're talking about what gets into festivals, film festivals. We're talking about what the audience wants, the kind of conversations that are existing in the world of cinema and art right now. And I guess I'm feeling conflicted with how much do you think about the audience while you're coming up with the thing? I think you always want to think about how an audience is going to be affected by what's saying, not necessarily offended or anything, but like, are they going to understand the story? Is the audience going to feel how you want them to feel reacting to each scene? But I guess I'm thinking about the actual content of the work and how much do you factor in other people when creating something? And I think this ties into what I would like to talk about today in this second episode of this show that I'm not sure if I have a name for yet, which is just for me. It's for no one else. So if you're not me, don't click off. But in this show for me today, I'd like to talk about the writing process. And I mean, I think this is applicable to different forms, but I guess I'll say writing process right now because that's what I'm doing a lot of. And I think that anything of value needs to be entirely authentic to you. And so when creating something, I do believe that you need to come from a place of total non-judgmental freedom. And right now, that's looking to me like when I'm writing, I'm not editing. I'm just letting it pour out. It's kind of like this was like Jack Kerouac's whole thing of just like let it flow. You know what I mean? Like he would sit down and drink coffee and take benzos and or whatever and just write for 3 weeks straight. And I don't know if that works for everybody, but I think that he said something interesting about that. Your unconscious does a lot of work without you knowing, and it is the conscious barriers that we put, the judgmental voices, the thinking about, the thinking too much about the end game at the beginning that actually inhibits the work. And so I am wondering now as well, in that process where it's just flowing out, you're not shaping it yet, you're just creating the clay, how much when are you being gratuitous and when are you being honest about the human condition? And I think that, there's a difference between art and pornography. You know what I mean? I keep doing this. I keep getting just lost today in my thought. To be honest, I'm feeling a real mix of emotions. Let's just stick to the writing process. Let's just talk about that because that's something that I am formulating opinions on. I've been quite obsessed with the idea of writing at the same time every day, and specifically in the morning. And I've sort of gotten this idea from this Japanese author, Haruki, I can't remember his last name, Murakami. I think that's it. Haruki Murakami, and if I'm wrong, we'll fix that. And he had a really fascinating routine to me where he gets up at like 4 or 5, like right at the crack of dawn, and he writes till maybe like 1 or 2, and then he runs 10k, and then like listens to music or reads, and then goes to bed at 9. And he says that he does this every day for like 4 months, for like 6 months to a year. And what interested me the most about this is that he said that it's a form of mesmerization. That when you're in a state like this, you become mesmerized and you reach a deeper level of sort of like a deeper ability to think in your work. And so I've been implementing that lately on my days off from work, writing from about, I'd say, 8 to 12. And this ties into that idea of freedom when you're writing, where, there's this experiment called the morning pages. And in this is a separate thing, but you get up like first thing in the morning, you write like 3 A4 pages of just whatever flows out. And I think that there is something to working at times when the day hasn't yet crept in or the day has ended. So I used to always write at night, but I think that there's a fatigue that comes with writing at night. Whereas fresh in the morning, you've come from, I don't want to sound too woo-woo, but you've already come from a dream state. You've come from strictly like being in your unconscious for hopefully 7 to 8 hours. And I think there's something to that freshness of being in this sort of other state, coming in, having your coffee, and not going on your phone, not letting the world creep in, and just working in this dedicated time every single day, and then you go about your day. And I feel like that is conducive to freedom in good work. And so I guess the loose topic today is the writing process and freedom. And so what are my opinions? I feel even blocked right now just saying it after an influx of opinions that I've been, and of conversations I've been having about artwork and the content in artwork and freedom. And, somebody that I was talking to the other day said they like when filmmakers disappear into their work, whereas my work feels distinctly me. Like he can feel the filmmaker or the artist. Is that bad? I mean, like, can you feel Jean Cocteau? Can you feel David Lynch? Can you feel Woody? I mean, you can feel Woody Allen. So how much of these external things, like, I mean, how free do we go here? How much is it just like, this is exactly what I think, this is exactly me, this is how I talk, but now it's in this different setting? And how much of it is like, this is a film, this is a piece of art, and these are the rules? I mean, I've never been good at following rules anyway. And so as soon as rules come into artwork, I feel constricted. And even lately I've been playing with like rules of form, you know what I mean? By like a movie is, a short film I wrote is half, grounded in reality and half super, super surreal. To the point that like, I don't even necessarily know, I wasn't fully conscious of what I was writing as I was doing it. But then looking back, it made sense. And so, but the hiccup is, and from people who may know more than me, and from people who I do value their opinion, they tell me that, like, looking at things from a festival's point of view, like, festivals like this, they want this. If it's going to be this, it has to be more genre. And I mean, like, fuck, as soon as I start thinking about, like, the scaffolding of a piece or festivals and all that, it's suddenly, I hit a, you know what I mean? Is following parameters gonna get out the good work? I don't know. But maybe that even this kind of thinking isn't for the 8 a.m. to 12 writing time. Maybe the 8 a.m. to 12 writing time is the lump of clay. You get it out, you be honest, or 8 to 12 music time, whatever it is, or painting time. It's these things. There is a time for editing, and there is a time for just letting it flow. And you're going to get a massive influx of voices, and you need to have times when you're not listening to that, when you are alone with your paper in the world. Because the voices that'll tell you, this is what festivals like, the voices that'll tell you, the high school friend in the back of your head when you write a poem that calls you gay, the voices that say that you're wrong and attach shame to your work and make you feel like Dorian Gray in your explorations, and the voices that tell you that you should go get a real job, these aren't helpful for creating great work, especially in the early stages, because all great work comes from a place of freedom. I mean, I think Nina Simone said something like that. I wish I knew what it meant to be free. Like being on stage, that's freedom. Sitting in your room with your pen in the wee small hours, that's freedom. When I think of freedom, I think of Paul McCartney coming up with Get Back, just playing his bass and strum, in the documentary. And so, yes, be mindful of the audience. But be mindful of them when... be mindful of the audience when you're getting ready to show it to them. But as long as when you're getting the clay, when you're chipping away at the clay, I think it almost does need to be that Dorian Gray thing. It almost does need to be your soul. It needs to be honest, and it needs to be complete expression without these conscious biases. I think that's the truth. And I think it needs to be reaching. Somewhere beyond your ability and between your desire, that is where your soul shines through. Touch it, and you'll be melted by the hot flame within. Burn like the star inside, and disappear completely. Howl, howl, howl. I wrote that poem. I came up with it actually on the last. I think I'd just finished running a marathon, and I was about to faint. I felt like I was going to pass out at the end of that marathon in the last couple Ks, and it was becoming really difficult. And then suddenly we reached sort of the last K and a half, and there were people everywhere, and I saw my friends and my mum on the sideline, and I yelled out an enthusiastic like yeah, and as soon as I yelled out, I felt this like rush, and I started sprinting, and it was like this. There was this whole other energy store inside of me, and I have to say, like, I've had similar things like that happen when I'm on stage in theater, and it does feel like that when you go beyond what you're capable of doing in the moment, and it is this like this sort of suddenly it becomes, there is this sort of irrational energy and focus that can come out of you. It's almost like an out of body thing, and I think I felt in that final sprint. I just kept doing it. I just kept screaming and going, yeah. And whenever I screamed, and I started screaming as well, like, oh, it feels so good. And I was in so much pain. But whenever I screamed, I wouldn't feel any of the pain. And I could sprint as like fast as I can. And it was like suddenly like my lungs were like, had all the air I could ever need, ever. And I realized how applicable that was to most things in life. Like these things that are blocking us, they're not, for the most part, a lot of the time they're not real. Like you can get an extra rep. You can get, you can always do a little more than you think. And there is something spiritual about that to me. There is. That is proof enough of some sort of connection to another, and it's not a rational, reasonable thing. And I think that is the howling that you have to do in your work. You have to find that deep within, that you need to find that howl where these things will flow out of you and you don't know where they came from. And more often than not, I mean, it's like when an idea just hits you, like these things, that's the juice. And I don't think that has anything to do with thinking even about structure of a song or any of these things, thinking too much. Like there's only so much that the rational mind can do. And but there's also so many areas where like it'll block you. And so the moral of the story, and the howl, howl, howl at the end is just like, if you keep howling, then something will come. So the moral is, and tying this back into the writing process, and the discomfort I'm feeling with my work, is that I don't think the audience is as important when you're coming up with a piece to consider as when you're shaping it. Rick Rubin said it's the last thing you think about. So I think there's a value to setting aside time every day where you do work and you're not intruded upon by the outside world or even yourself. It's just where it comes out. The same time every day. I think chasing that mesmerism, that routine where your brain knows, all right, now it's time for work. I think that is a must. So no matter if you feel inspired or not, sit down at the same time every day and howl and see what comes out and see if anything, even if it is irrational and crazy, that could be the money. And then there will be a time where that time won't be for writing, but it will be for sculpting and editing. And then maybe that's when you consider, well, festivals like this or current audience is really attracted to this thing. But even then, maybe not. Maybe your only job is to howl in your own voice and to be as authentic to you as possible. Because the more honest you are, that is how people relate. Honesty and transparentness is how you cultivate closeness in people in life. And I think also in work. We're attracted to work that makes us cry. We're attracted to songs that are emotional and vulnerable. Can't be too specific. I mean, you got to keep it somewhat relatable. This show is just going to be like this. It's just going to be a madman, rambling into a mic. In 5 years, I'll be wandering around Venice Beach in a tattered suit, going, they don't understand. No one understands. I'll be literally howling like a wolf down the beach. But maybe not. I had something else I was going to say, but I don't remember it. So perhaps that is enough for this episode. But do not fear what you're making. Don't feel ashamed of it. Let it flow out. Be life affirming to all aspects of life. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. The big thing that I kind of had an epiphany before as well with writing a bunch of like dark work is I don't feel like writing or watching Parks and Rec right now. I want to watch Ripley. There's a place for it. And perhaps if you put in the work, there'll be a place for you and your work. So God bless. Keep cracking.